Good evening, good Sunday evening. Welcome to Sunday presentation. Today is all about science. And actually today we will have two presentations. I will do the science, and one of my business leaders, Janet Hammond, is going to enlighten you on some recent things happening. My name is Dr. Sveta Silverman. And I'm going to talk to you about NRF2 and COVID. Please do not ask me any questions during my presentation. After my presentation, please, you can ask me the questions, and I probably will indicate when it is possible. Thank you very much for understanding. The compliance is very, very important to me. So, and I'm having technical difficulties. Now, viruses. What is it all about viruses, guys? So is our microbial world. Viruses do not replicate without a host. Viruses do not survive without the viruses survive, but they do not thrive without a host. Viruses are smart, they adopt and they mutate. We are going to be touching today upon immune system significance. However, today I'm not going to be talking about vitamin D significance, but I must point to you the vitamin D significance. This may be another conversation. Okay. Let's get into COVID, the virus, and the importance of cellular health and the importance of NRF2. To me, the most important part of basically my education and my mission is to teach you that a cell is a fortress of no entry. It's a fortress of no viral entry, and it's also a fortress of self-protection. So what I did today, in the last few days, I was reviewing a literature on NRF2 and different type of viruses, predominantly SARS-CoV type 2 virus, and now known as a COVID-19. This study, which is done now, the references that I'm providing in terms of NRF2 are from some of the people that I know personally, and I consider them as my NRF2 mentors. Dr. Cheng-Gu Lee is one of the leaders in NRF2 science, one of the NRF2 mammoth. He's a Korean doctor. In 2018, he published a paper, Therapeutic Modulation of Virus-Induced Oxidative Stress by NRF2 Dependent Oxidative Pathway. So what is important in this paper, what I took out of it is, I told you previously that viruses are smart and they adapt, and some of them acquire NRF2 modulation. We're not going to talk about it, but some of them, they decrease NRF2 activity in the cells. And it seems like that COVID-19 virus is actually the one that decreases the activity of NRF2. So now, the paper that I'm quoting now, can activation of NRF2 be a strategy against COVID-19? This paper is actually published already now. The rest of the papers are all from 2020. And this paper is actually by one of my dearest mentors, Dr. Albina Dinkova-Kostova. I call her godmother of NRF2, and some of her collaborators that I met few times through NRF2 World Conferences. So, before we embark on COVID virus, let's review NRF2. What is NRF2? Why do we call NRF2 cup and collar? Cup and collar complex, because as you see right here, if you see right here, you see there is almost like a shoehorn, and it is attached to that NRF2. So this is cup and collar, lock and key. And in this situation, NRF2 is not active and doing nothing. So when we are not stressed and we're relaxed and there is no free radical damage or free radical attack, NRF2 is not needed, it is degraded. A cell is very frugal and very efficient. However, when there is an oxidative stress attack, what happens is, as you hear, there's a detachment. It's almost like two parts to the magnet. So now this part of the magnet, which is called NRF2, is free. And when it is free, what it does, it goes into the nucleus and it starts activating, as you see, cytoprotective genes, multiple cytoprotective genes. Now, COVID-19, I'm pretty sure by now every one of you heard the term that is called ACE2, or angiotensin converting enzyme. And that angiotensin converting enzyme, this is the one that allows the viral entry. And however, there is a very direct interaction between NRF2 protein complex and the ACE receptor. So let me show you how it happens. Don't worry, it's not too complicated. We're not going to go through every protein. So what happens here? So this is the virus with the spikes, and this is your ACE. This is your angiotensin converting enzyme. When are those, you see these little hooks? When is the situation, and what is the situation when we have too many of these hooks? The situation is when we have a high blood pressure. Now, as you see here, so the virus is not going to go into the cell if one of the spikes is not aligning with the hook of this ACE receptor. When this happens, you see the virus integrates into the host, into the cell. I told you that the viruses are not active without the cell because they need to feed, they need to multiply, and they need to integrate into our cellular genome, into the nucleus. However, what you also see here, our famous NRF2, it basically blocks that receptor. It doesn't allow that receptor to accept the virus. This is the importance of co-functioning of active and functional NRF2. With hopefully not so much functional ACE2 receptor. And from here, when virus integrated into the cell, what happens to the virus? You see that there is a membrane or envelope, which is called capsid. And then we're going to be talking about other constituents of the cell with upregulation of NRF2 that work in order for not allowing this virus to go through this envelope. Virus is active when it goes out of this envelope and then it integrates into our DNA. When it replicates, multiplies, then it acquires its envelope back and it moves, it gets out of the cell, it leaves the cell. That's how the virus multiplies. Now, let's go here. What is important here again, what this slide shows when the virus gets into the cell, and then the virus goes through different phases of integration into our DNA, and then replicating, dividing, multiplying, and transitioning out of the cell. One comes, multiple gets out. Now, next, what is important? How do we respond to viruses or bacteria or anything? We actually respond through inflammation. The activation, the normal, adequate activation of inflammatory response, that's what is killing the viruses or not allowing the viruses on the first place. So now we're talking about the immune system. And as you see here, the immune system is a combination of multiple parts of immune system. There is a primary or innate immune system, the immune system of entry. And then there is more and more sophisticated immune system with the one that actually develops the immunity, those antibodies. Now, and there are cells that actually communicate something in between. Many of you, I'm sure by now, heard that people who die from COVID, they usually die from cytokine storm. Cytokines are chemical molecules or combinations that induce those inflammatory reactions. And many of you probably, I'm showing you the slide with many of these chemokines or cytokines, but I'm sure a lot of you heard of IL-6. That kind of comes across. But here on this slide, what you see is there is a proper immune response with a proper activation, with not a barrage of it when we recover from the infection. And then there is something when the body is confused, when there's a cytokine storm develops, and what happens, we become very ill, where the virus attacks vital organs, as you see here. Now, so here's the deal. So look at this. So not only NRF2, proper upregulation or proper activity of NRF2 does not allow the entry of the virus into the cell, but what it does, it also properly regulates. NRF2 plays a role in both execution and resolution of inflammation by down-regulation some of those pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6. Crucially, NRF2 pathway have been found to be suppressed in the lung biopsies of COVID-19 patients. And that's what we hear. That's what we hear about severity of COVID infection through the lungs. Now, okay, let's leave NRF2 alone. However, when we talk about NRF2, what we are touching NRF2 with, we already mentioned that NRF2, the whole goal of NRF2 is to upregulate cytoprotective genes, cytocell, the genes that protect the cells. So what do these genes do? So those genes, they activate or they stimulate the production of certain proteins or certain enzymes. And we know of one of the most important antioxidants of the cell, which is called glutathione. So this study, funny enough, published by and written by a Russian scientist, is about endogenous, meaning our deficiency, intracellular deficiency of glutathione as the most likely cause of serious manifestations and death in COVID-19 patients. Now, he did the study, however, he hypothesized this. This is not that he's like, boom, this is the everything now is a hypothesis. So now, evidence support oxidative stress and inflammation resulting from free radical damage and decreased antioxidants defense contribute to pathogenesis of different chronic conditions like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic respiratory disease, but those are the diseases that make people or patients the most vulnerable to acquire COVID infection. Glutathione. What is glutathione? Glutathione is a combination of 3 different amino acids. So what happens now? As you see, glutathione controls the various biological processes such as detoxification of foreign and our produces garbage. Now, the importance of glutathione is not just, to detoxify this. However, it also works together in the regeneration of vitamin C and vitamin E, very, very important. Maintenance of mitochondrial function, antiviral defense, regulation of cellular proliferation and immune response. Now, glutathione. So when NRF2 activates cytoprotective genes, it activates the glutathione gene. That's when you need those precursors, those amino acids. That's why you need to eat right. So when you have on board those amino acids like cysteine, glycine, and glutamate, then that upregulated gene is going to stimulate the production of glutathione, because it's very important for us, our cells, to make glutathione, more important than take it from the outside in the form of. And this is, let's say, the summary. Glutathione deficiency, when do we get it? When are we more prone? And look how it shifts from the normality to pathology. Like, look, when we are over 65, low glutathione intake, inadequate diet. Thank you, Joanne Scherer. Thank you for teaching me good diet, and more and more and more. Unfortunately, males a little more prevalent, cigarette smoking and chronicity. And we already mentioned the chronic diseases, and that's what causes glutathione deficiency, and that may shift into the adverse outcome. So now, this is very important. It's important to know the evidence that glutathione inhibits replication of various viruses at different stages. And this antiviral property of glutathione seems to prevent increased viral loads and the subsequent massive release of inflammatory cytokines, aka cytokine storm. Everything makes sense. I hope that I am sort of, building the sequences that make sense. Janet, I see your face. Does it make sense? Yes? Okay, good. Now, so this is the basically hypothesis, final hypothesis from this, I would say, amazing physician. His hypothesis is Low glutathione is not good. Endogenous glutathione, our production of glutathione, is when it's not adequate, it is not good. So we need to take care of it. Now, another study, surprise, it's also written by Russians. I don't know, today I'm on the Russian wave. So patients with COVID infection and critical condition often have systemic inflammatory parameters. We can identify them via the blood test. We know that. Same thing again, it goes familiar actors, IL-6, interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factors. Some of you are in medical fields. NRF2 inhibits expression, which is good because we have too much of this in a cytokine storm. So when we have enough of NRF2, it is going to calm down that fire. This is very, very important summary, maybe long summary, but very, very important summary. Excessive inflammation in COVID-19 is associated with high lethality. Activation reduces inflammatory response, preventing expression of the inflammatory cytokine, this IL-6. Now, NRF2 inducers reduce inflammatory reactions in patients with acute and chronic diseases. Now, you guys need to understand all these papers are obviously concentrating amongst pharmaceutical NRF2 inducers. Now, severe cases of COVID-19 are accompanied by an increased oxidative stress. And there are some cases of successful treatment with glutathione or key enzymes, and then NRF2. The decrease of NRF2 activity promotes oxidative stress. Activation increases glutathione. And we know that the comorbidity, we know that the factors. Now, so those two papers, basically, the next two slides, these are the papers about pharmaceutical NRF2 activators, because the clinical studies, the human studies, can only be conducted with pharmaceutical NRF2 activators. And one of these pharmaceutical NRF2 activators, you know, that is the DMF, dimethyl fumarate, or known as Tecfidera. So in conclusion from that study and review, it is tempting to suggest that Tecfidera may be able to inhibit the entry of COVID-19 and do more and more. Again, and this is another study on another pharmaceutical actors, pharmaceutical NRF2 activators. The study demonstrates the expression of NRF2 dependent antioxidant or cytoprotective genes is significantly inhibited on COVID-19. So this is basically what I wanted to convey, how critically important it is to upregulate your immune system, to boost your immune system. And I did not talk to you about microgut, but you obviously know that 80% of our immune system resides in our microgut or in our gut. Now, we mentioned how critically important it is to upregulate your NRF2. We mentioned glutathione. I'm sure there are many other aspects, but those are such critical big actors. Let me finish with Hippocrates. Healing is a matter of time, but it's sometimes also a matter of opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to improve, increase, be absolutely proactive with our health. but it's also an opportunity to teach health. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing and introduce Joanne for another part.